Today on the official Marvel podcast, we take you to the red carpet premiere of Marvel Studios Thunderbolts.
Plus, we take a behind-the-scenes look at Thunderbolts as we hear from the film's crew, including costume designer Sanja Hays.
The idea was that it's a group of misfits. So the idea was not to make them feel like a group.
Ever wonder about the real-world science behind Bucky Barnes' hypnotic state as the Winter Soldier? Well, we talked to Dr. David Spiegel, who specializes in hypnosis and how it can be used as a therapy.
So you can control pain, you can control anxiety, you can get to sleep, you can stop smoking. You can use it to increase your control over body and mind.
I'm Sade Spence.
And I'm Langston Belton.
And this is the official Marvel podcast.
A few weeks ago, the stars came out in full force for the Marvel Studios Thunderbolts red carpet premiere event. And I gotta say, Sade, this cast, absolutely stunning.
Oh, 1000% Langston. And the premiere included appearances from the cast, crew, and much, much more. And of course, we got front row access to the action. Our friend and fellow co-host of the official Marvel podcast, Ray Lowe, was there live. Let's take a listen.
Florence.
Hello.
How does it feel returning to the MCU? I mean, what has it been like to bring Yelena to the Thunderbolts?
You know what's wild is when we premiered Black Widow, we were in the height of COVID, and so we didn't get to have an affair like this. And I'm here and I see the poster on like all three walls.
It's just your face everywhere.
It's bonkers.
Well, we have to talk about it first because the stunt.
Yeah.
And you are such a pro at stunts, but this time you literally took the leap. You jumped from the second highest building in the world. I mean, how do you prepare for that mentally and physically?
Well, I wouldn't be here without any of the stunties that actually got me there. So like all the props actually goes to them. Yeah, how did it? I don't know why I forced myself to do that. And I was the main annoying person. I was like tapping away on all the emails being like, you need to let me jump off the second tallest building in the world. I don't know why I did that, but I'm so grateful I did. It was a mad experience, like totally mad. Yeah. Every time I watched that stunt, and I watch myself step off the edge, my stomach doesn't even flip. It just drops to my feet.
I mean, kind of worth it because you got a Guinness World Record.
Yeah.
You put it next to all the rest of your awards.
I just don't know where I'm going to go after this. Like, I don't know what stunt I'm going to do next. I don't know how I top that.
Well, tell us where we see Yelena go in this film.
She's different. She's not the thing that we fell in love with in the first movie. She's definitely challenged and also has gone through a huge amount of loss and grief and trauma. And we're seeing that. She's someone that is struggling.
Yeah.
And it's through, all of the other characters in this movie that really pulls her out of this hole that she really feels herself falling into.
I do want to talk about those characters for a moment because this is such an amazing cast. It's an amalgamation of so many characters in the MCU, so many actors. I mean, what was that dynamic like trying to figure out the tone of the movie?
It's a lot of personality on set.
A lot of David Harbour, maybe?
No, not just him. There's a lot of personality on set. It takes some of the most amazing brains to make sure that this story gets pulled off in the right way. And to come back to this movie, it's my second Marvel movie ever. To be asked to come back, but to work with this cast was just like a dream come true. A dream come true. Absolutely amazing.
Well, we are so excited to see what Yelena does. I love what you've done with the character. Everyone does, So congratulations to your first MCU partner.
I know. Thanks for having me.
Sebastian, welcome to yet another MCU red carpet.
Thank you very much.
Although you were just telling me it's been a moment since you've been with this fanfare.
It's been a moment, and I actually think 2019 was the last time I've been on this boulevard at Endgame.
Oh, that's crazy.
So I'm having flashbacks. It's like a lot's happened since then. But
okay, wait, let's dive into that because I mean, you are probably one of the actors, the MCU actors who've been in the longest. You've been through every phase at this point.
Yes.
What kind of journey has Bucky been on, and where do we find him at the start of this film?
I think we find him in a good place because at the end of Falcon Winter Soldier, I think he finally kind of got a hold of those demons, but he's still sort of figuring out how to fit in, and I think he's a little bit like a quarterback that like retired but keeps coming back to the team, and he's like, what can I do? How can I help? Put me in. And they're like, you're no longer on the team. So that's his way into politics.
Yeah.
Which is not his forte. And then I think he figures out that actually, wait, I could be useful because I'm seeing a bunch of misfits that remind me of me.
Well, tell me a bit about that dynamic and kind of how you worked with Jake Schreier on this. It's such like a tonally different film. It's a really exciting new step for the MCU.
Jake is a genius, and I commend him for having the patience to deal with a lot of us personalities. But it is a very unique film. It's not entirely Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's not entirely Captain America: Winter Soldier. It's really somewhere in between. I mean, there's dark humor, but there's a lot of heart, and it doesn't shy away from vulnerability and pain and the trauma that all of these characters go through.
I love that we're getting this unique perspective. We love Bucky. We're so excited to see where he goes for this. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Enjoy the movie.
Louis Pullman, welcome to the MCU.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to be had.
It's a lot of fanfare,
It's incredible. Yeah, no, it is remarkable. It's quite the pageantry they pull out for this.
You have just portrayed some really grounded, complex characters in the past. What was it like bringing that to this new, larger than life, Hollywood star-studded film?
Oh man, yeah, it was quite a task. I mean, I had some serious imposter syndrome, happening, but luckily it was with a cast that was so welcoming, and they all were very reminiscent about what their first time stepping into the MCU was like, and they took me under their wing in a really generous way. So I couldn't have been able to do it without that. And then also having Jake Schreier, the director, with me every step of the way. We were both kind of doing it together, which felt like we had this very simpatico kind of brotherhood that was very comforting, and I couldn't have done it without Jake.
I know you can't say much, and I want to ask so much about the dynamic with this cast, but a little bit about Bob. Just what can fans expect from your character?
I think fans can expect Bob to unleash the unexpected. I mean, it teaches you to never really judge a book by its cover, and know that there's a lot always going on behind everyone's eyes. Everyone here has something going on that they're going through, whether it looks like it or not.
I'm so excited to just get into the tone of this film. It's going to be so much fun. We cannot wait to see what you bring to the MCU.
Thank
Louis,
you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you.
Kevin Feige, the man with all the Marvel plans. Welcome to yet another MCU premiere.
Thank you.
I mean, there's already been such a great positive reaction from the fans. How are you feeling with this release?
I feel very good. I can't wait for everybody to see it. We felt very good about this movie. We screened it much earlier than we usually do. I was with the cast last week in London for the premiere there, and it went really well. So I'm very excited for everybody to see this, because it's a great Marvel movie, and because Jake has done something very special, and the whole cast with this movie, with looking into deeper thematics, I think, for people to find.
I want to touch on that partnership with Jake, and kind of the tone of the film. It's awesome. This is a new step into the MCU in a way. We've got all of these mental and physical issues that everyone's dealing with. Why bring this to the MCU now? Why is this such an important story to tell?
I mean, this is our 36th movie, and we try to evolve, and we try to grow, and we try to keep doing different things. And we also, as I always say, look to the comics.
What are you most excited for fans to get out of Thunderbolts?
I think I'm excited for them to see something a little more deep, a little more meaningful, that might touch them in a way they haven't felt before, in terms of the relatability and accessibility to their own life experiences. I also think there's some great action in it. There's some great comedy in it. And stay till the end of the credits.
Like till the end to the end.
Yeah, that's not really a juicy nugget, but that's...
Well, I don't know. You heard it here first.
And this one is particularly fun and meaningful, and looks towards the future.
Well, I cannot wait to see what this is all going to bring to the MCU.
Great.
I know the fans can.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thanks so much.
Now, if you're like all of us and you can't stop thinking about Thunderbolts,
or you can't stop watching it like me, I may be on my third, fourth.
You just going to the theater like that, just hitting the theater, just doing the circuit.
Oh yeah. The film is that good, Langston. It is that good.
Do you space out your viewings for food breaks in between, or no? Or are you just going...
Popcorn is the food break. Popcorn is the food break, okay?
I like that. Just at concessions, just housing a little thing of popcorn. More Thunderbolts.
They know me there. Just bring it. Just bring it over.
They know me there. Just say Sade sent you. Well, I respect it. I respect that. Hey, It's nice to be a regular at the movie theater. That's old school Hollywood. Well, listen, I respect it very much, Shade, but listen, if you're still itching to get more Thunderbolts, well, we've got you covered. Today, we are joined by the crew behind the film, from the writers to VFX to costuming to the film's director, Jake Schreier.
Each major player in Thunderbolts had been featured in previous films or TV shows. So this allowed Jake to use the already established backstories and characters to his advantage.
It is a real interesting thing because it's kind of unique to Marvel movies in the universe, where it's like in a TV show, you know, by nature, like the story moves on and the character arcs are built over seasons. And I think, you know, some people sort of sometimes talk about Marvel movies like as episodes of a large TV show, which makes sense on a certain level. But in a movie, in theory, like if you've ended a movie, you've resolved a character's arc in that film, which people have done so successfully, like in Black Widow. And so it's a little strange. I think like the thing that was the most challenging was like the actors would be like, well, but I'm going through this. And I'm like, well, you are. That's totally true. And you played that and you invested so much in it in that movie. But in theory, you know, because that movie worked, that arc has ended and we now need a new problem. So like, how do you build something that can function as a sort of standalone movie, but with characters that have relationships? And so, yeah, I think we looked at it like, all right, well, one nice thing is we just know that these two actors work so well together, and we know that this relationship like has a lot of, like, it works. Then for people that have seen it, obviously there's greater emotional weight.
When it came to the overall tone of this movie, Jake worked alongside Marvel Studios producer Alana Williams to find the right fit. Here's Alana.
You know, I think in creating the tone of Thunderbolts, it has been this very hard line to toe. You're balancing tragedy and comedy. And I think we are very lucky and appreciative to have Jake on our team. He has been such a arbiter of this tone that we are seeking. It's this incredible balance of humor and jokes and silliness with these really dark moments and going into these traumas of these characters. And he's able to mix it in a way that feels comedic and like appropriately and earned sadness. And I think all in all, he creates a story and a feeling and a tone that is all very aspirational and real and important.
Part of creating that story involved bringing on Joanna Callow as a writer. According to Alana, bringing Callow into the writer's room really helped fine-tune the script.
We brought on a writer, Joanna Callow, who has been hugely helpful in telling this story. I think as a mother and as an incredible woman in this film industry, she understands this balance of life and motherhood and career. And I think that brought so much warmth to these female characters. You know, we have this beautifully led female, film with Yelena and Valentina and Ava. And I think Joanna brought this female voice to the script that was so important and helpful.
Here's Joanna Callow herself on what it was like to work on the script for Thunderbolts.
That's the dream, to write something that's a little different, but playing within the genre. And I don't really know how to write anything that isn't grounded. I think it's a strength and a weakness, probably. And getting to be able to do something grounded in this world felt like the most exciting opportunity to play in the hero space and saying kind of superhero lines, but having real emotions. And that was the fun of taking on this project, for sure.
Now, if Joanna's name sounds familiar, that's because she's a writer and co-showrunner of the award-winning TV series The Bear. And according to her, one of the main reasons for joining the MCU was a shot at writing the de facto leader of the Thunderbolts.
Being able to write for both Florence Pugh and Yelena was, again, one of the main reasons I wanted to do the project. I think she's such an amazing character, and yes, she is female, which is something I'm very passionate about, but she is funny and strong. And, I loved learning about where she came from in the earlier movie. And it felt like getting to see that person not only process her trauma, but also learn how to be a leader when she didn't think she was supposed to, felt like a really relatable story and one that I was really excited to work on.
And it wasn't just Yelena that she was excited about. Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character Valentina was also a highlight.
I mean, it's great, but it's intimidating for sure. I mean, and I think, again, a great female character, and love the idea of her being really intelligent, which is so easy for Julia to play, but also she's not to be messed with. And that feels like really cool to give her the opportunity to play a little bit more in that space. But it's cool to be pushing her a little bit more into the dramatic space and into the, evil supervillain space.
And she wasn't the only one thrilled to get to work with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Over in the costume department, Sanja Hays was just as hyped to work with her and establish Val's wardrobe.
Julia, she's one of my favorite actresses in the world. She's so amazing to work with. And yes, we talked a lot about that. And I first met with her and we discussed the character and I came up with pictures and the ideas. And she's very much no nonsense and she just says what she thinks, and which is fantastic. So it was just great. It was just great to work with her. And I think we came up with great look for her, really great. And also, obviously, we wanted her to look fantastic.
Sanja Hays is the costume designer behind all your favorite looks from Marvel Studios Thunderbolts. And when it comes to the overall range of costumes, Sanja says that her goal was to be tonally different than what's come before in the MCU.
The idea was that it's a group of misfits. So the idea was not to make them feel like a group. I mean, the one thing that is sort of a common denominator of all of them is color, and to make them look much more approachable, much more human, not quite as superheroic like their previous versions in the different movies. So especially is obviously in Ghost and Taskmaster, from their very superhero, we made them look much more human and show who they are, to see these characters what they were before and make them look different. And then, of course, the movie is much darker, so tonally they were more dark. They were not quite as bright as in the other movies, except for Red Guardian. Even him we toned down a little bit. But yeah, it was the idea of kind of merge the group of misfits.
But let's break down some of these individual costumes for our heroes. First, here's what Sanja had to say about Yelena Belova's costume.
So Yelena's costume looks the most as her costume in a previous movie, because it's very utilitarian, it's very flexible, she looks like a warrior, but much more human than some other ones. And then we changed it tonally from her white costume from the previous movies. But they were also very designed in terms of very kind of superheroish fantasy. We went with almost like a jumpsuit, and yet choosing the color that is going to be good with her skin tone, with her eyes, with her hair, and then be comfortable for all the action.
As for John Walker's costume, Sanja focused less on aesthetics and more on making improvements that enhanced its overall functionality and fit.
So his suit, as far as the look of the suit, did not change much, but we spent a lot of time trying to make it fit better and look better on him so that he looks superheroic with the big shoulders and narrow waist and all of this. And also he is able to do all the action he needs and it's comfortable. And that's one of the things that I really always strive on all the characters, to be able to feel comfortable, because I think that is our job, to make them feel so that they don't think about the suit. First of all, obviously, when they come in the morning to put a suit on to feel like a character, but then when they are on the set to not think about the suit, because we want them to give the best performance and the best action possible, so that it's our job to make the suits as comfortable as possible.
And then there's the Red Guardian, played by David Harbour. Here's Sanja on the evolution of his costume since we last saw him in Marvel Studios' Black Widow.
So the idea of David Harbour's suit was that he has been now in America for a long time. and he wanted a new suit, and he has changed and all of this. And one of the big, obviously, thing about Americana is baseball. So his entire suit is very much inspired by the baseball uniforms and the baseball armor and the gloves and everything else. And so he decided to make his own suit. I mean, even when we're in his living room, we see a little sewing machine and pieces of material and stuff like that. He is making his thing, and he is also stitching it and doing everything. And then all the hardware on his suit, it looks like something he could have found in his garage. And then sort of the final touch of the whole suit was the buckle, which is the buckle from the seatbelt in a car, because now he has a limo. So we decided that that's probably what he would take as his buckle.
The updates in Red Guardian's suit are nothing compared to the major upgrade that Hannah John Common's character Ghost receives since the last time we saw her in Marvel Studios' Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Also, well, the Ghost suit is a huge change. I mean, the biggest and the first change on the Ghost is it's black, it's not white, right? So that was a huge change. That was Jake's idea, that he wanted her to appear as sort of a ghost, being black and with just a white helmet. And then also we tried to do it, the idea was to make it different and much more human-like and approachable. And the materials, I kind of was trying to give it a slight sheen on the top so that it gives a little ghostly sheen when she shows up. And the big thing was that I insisted on her skirt, and there was a lot of R&D there so that her skirt can be, because she's phasing and spinning, that her skirt does the same, so that it's not contradicting the action, or it's not restricting the action, but it's actually enhancing her action. So we made the whole skirt so that when she spins, the whole skirt widens up and spins.
Speaking of Ghost, we also got a chance to hear from visual effects supervisor Jake Morrison on helping to bring that character's abilities to life. Here's Jake.
Ghost is really fun, and what I'm leveraging with Ghost is a very old school technique, kind of called a Texas switch, is what we often call it. So it occurred to me early in prep that we were going to have two ghosts, because obviously we've got Stunt Ghost, and then we've got Hannah, who's our actress. And so you have two of these ultra cool costumes built, and I'm like, well, for a character who phases through solid objects, there's a number of different VFX-y ways to do it. But they would normally involve shooting everything in multi-layers. And so once you shoot things in multi-layers, it's a technical way to do it, and it's fine, but it takes the actors out of that moment. So if I can ever think of a way to shoot things that are continuous to keep the momentum and the relationship in the room correct, I will do. So we do weird things, frankly. I mean, it looks weird on camera. In the film, it'll be fine, where we'll have one ghost run directly at Walker, and when she's supposed to phase through Walker, what will happen is that ghost, which is Hannah, will then drop down, literally drop under the lens. Like Walker, Wyatt will then behave as if he's just been phased through, and then right behind him, like, we'll have Nadia, who's our double, will pop up and then continue the run. So the interesting thing with that is everybody knows where everybody is, where the action is, and how to feel, how to behave. And you can have much more dynamic cameras involved in that, because you don't have to do multi-layering and repeat camera moves and such. So very much trying to go old school with this. We've got two costumes, why not use them?
Thunderbolts features a grounded storytelling approach with an emphasis on practical effects. For Jake Morrison, that meant adjusting his approach to fit Thunderbolts director Jake Schreier's vision.
It's quite a relief, this one, actually, just because tonally, like most of the films I've done in the last 10 years have been big kind of blockbuster, sci-fi, space opera type stuff. And the thing with those types of films is that you can be anything, you can go anywhere, you can do anything, and that's freeing in some ways, but it also leads sometimes to a lack of decisions, because anything can be anything. So sometimes you decide this stuff a little bit too late in the process. So whilst the imagination running wild is a privilege, sometimes it's great to be challenged with something that's a little bit more grounded. And that's really where Jake wanted to take this one.
You can experience the story, effects, writing, and costumes for yourself in Marvel Studios Thunderbolts. Only in theaters now. One of the themes occasionally explored in Marvel Studios projects is how our heroes deal with trauma. And when it comes to Bucky Barnes, there's a lot of trauma to unpack there.
Yes, absolutely. Not just physical trauma with losing the arm. The guy was brainwashed and turned into a killing machine against his will. It's like a miracle that he has not completely imploded underneath all of that baggage.
I know, Langston. And since we're already talking about Bucky, we thought it'd be interesting to hear from someone who studies the effects of hypnosis in the real world and to hear how it can be used as a therapeutic treatment. Take a listen. I'm joined by psychiatrist Dr. David Spiegel. Dr. Spiegel, thank you so much for chatting with us. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell them what you do?
Thank you, Sade. I'm glad to be here with you. I'm Dr. David Spiegel. I'm a professor and associate chair of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at Stanford University School of Medicine. And I've been doing research on hypnosis for close to 50 years.
Wow. Okay, so you are the expert. So can you give us a clear definition of hypnosis?
Hypnosis is a state of highly focused attention. You guys make movies. What you cultivate is that capacity to experience believed in imagination. So you get so caught up in a movie that you forget you're watching a movie and you enter the imagined world. That's kind of the goal of what you want to do. Hypnosis is a state like that, where you get intensely focused, like looking through the telephoto lens of a camera, which you see with great detail, but you're less aware of other things. And so hypnosis is a naturally occurring state that people can get into. It involves intensity of focus. That means putting outside of conscious awareness things that you would ordinarily be conscious of. So right now, Sade, you're sitting in a chair. Hopefully you were not aware of the sensations of your body touching the chair until I brought it to your attention. So to get engaged with something, you have to put outside of awareness things that would ordinarily be in consciousness. And hypnosis is also a state where you can try out being different, where you can see what it's like to be different. And that's what we do with our imaginations. But in hypnosis, you sort of suppress your ordinary thoughts about who you are and what you ought to be and what you should be doing. And you allow yourself to see what it's like to be different.
Yeah, that actually makes so much sense. So you talked about highly focused attention. So what do you think is a common misconception about hypnosis? Is it just attention, or how else can it control someone? I say that with air quotes.
Control is exactly the word I was going to use, Sade. That hypnosis is seen as losing control. In hypnosis, because you get so absorbed in something, you can sometimes be misled or go in the wrong direction, or you can make your life better. You can do good things you didn't think you could do. But when people experience hypnosis, they're learning how to enhance their own control of their body and their mind. So you can control pain, you can control anxiety, you can get to sleep, you can stop smoking. You can use it to increase your control over body and mind.
Okay, so speaking of control some more, in the pages of Marvel Comics, Bucky Barnes is a U.S. Army veteran who, through the use of mind control, is trained to become an assassin called the Winter Soldier. So in the real world, how dramatically can someone's personality be controlled or altered using hypnosis?
Well, people can learn to change for the better, to control anxiety, to eat more sensibly, to stop smoking. Are there situations where people can be influenced to do bad things? Probably. It's not part of my usual clinical practice to do that.
Yeah, that's good.
But it is true that because you narrow your focus of attention, you can focus on, one particular goal and worry less about the path you take to that goal. In hypnosis, because of the narrowness of focus, you may be less likely to consider implications of something you're doing. That could happen. It's mainly the focusing of attention that is either a tremendous benefit or could be an opportunity for mischief.
So Bucky's Winter Soldier persona is highly suggestible to commands when a series of words are used. In reality, are people typically guided into a hypnotic state using, is it words? Is it sounds? Something else?
Yeah, from my perspective, all hypnosis is really self-hypnosis, and someone who's very hypnotizable and is having hypnotic experience is using that and allowing themselves to do it. So it's not a matter of somebody just literally stepping in and taking over your brain, but it is a matter of having a relationship potentially with someone who is using your hypnotic responsiveness for perhaps a bad end. And that, we've all had that it seemed like a good idea at the time experience. So to some extent, just the fact that we're social creatures makes us vulnerable to manipulation by other people. And I think hypnosis could be a more intense version of that.
And do you find with a person, would you say sounds works better, words, to put someone in that state? Or does that depend on the person?
Well, it can depend on the person and what sensory input they like, but in general, it's words.
And can anyone be hypnotized, or does it depend on the person?
People differ in their ability to experience hypnosis. Most children are in trances most of the time. You call your 8-year-old in for dinner and he doesn't hear you. He's out playing, and work and play are all the same thing for kids. That's why it's such a wonderful part of life, because they get instantly absorbed in what they're doing. As we develop adult ways of thinking, it's called formal operations, where you value analysis more and experience less. Some of us lose that hypnotizability we had as children. And by the time you're 21, your hypnotizability becomes a very stable trait, as stable as IQ over a 25-year interval. And so about 2/3 of the population are at least somewhat, and about, half of them are very hypnotizable. But there's about 1/4 of the population that just aren't hypnotizable. And so no amount of talking or anything else is going to make them have a hypnotic experience. And so what I do when I see people is I test their ability to experience hypnosis and go from there.
And I am curious, when you're testing that, what do you do to find out if they are subject to being hypnotized?
Well, we have a little test hypnotic experience. I have them go into the hypnotic state as best they can, and then I give them an instruction that when I stroke their forearm, their hand will feel light and buoyant and float up in the air like a balloon. If I pull it down, it'll float right back up. And we then test that out. And so I'll pull the hand down, and if it just goes up, people are often very, very surprised. They'll look at their hand and say, "What's going on here?" My hand has a mind of its own. So they're experiencing the sensory alteration and the dissociation, that the left hand literally feels not as much a part of their body as the other. And then I give a cutoff signal to bring things back to where it started. And people vary in their ability to have that kind of experience, but that is something we can measure and utilize in deciding how to help them.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Spiegel. This was very eye-opening. It was so fascinating to learn about, and we really appreciate having you today.
I'm glad to hear it was eye-opening, and when you go into hypnosis, it's eyes closing.
Yes. Very true. Thank you again.
You're welcome. Pleasure talking with you.
The Winter Soldier has done a lot of bad things. And despite being pardoned by the U.S. government and starting a new life as a hero, Bucky Barnes continues to carry that burden with him. In 2018's Winter Soldier, issue number 3, written by Kyle Higgins, Bucky is on a mission to help reformed villains find the same redemption he's received. While on this journey, he crosses paths with a teenage assassin named RJ. RJ is the latest living weapon to come out of the evil organization known as Hydra. He's even modeled after the Winter Soldier's programming. And RJ's current objective? To eliminate the Winter Soldier. The two duke it out, with Bucky ultimately coming out on top after RJ is shot in the shoulder by his handler, Mr. Colt. Bucky decides to take RJ in and get him medical attention. RJ considers Bucky's offer, but after being betrayed by one mentor, he's hesitant. Bucky believes that with time, RJ will come to trust him, but after RJ discovers and reads Bucky's diary, he calls him out for lying. After all, how can someone who still can't forgive himself for the things he's done as the Winter Soldier help others do just that? Bucky counters with a powerful response. People tell me I've redeemed myself, and some days I think that's true. Other days, I don't. Helping people helps me to feel worthwhile again. And maybe, hopefully, it'll help make those days where I really do feel like I've turned a corner not be so rare.
Next week on the official Marvel podcast, we dig into the spoilers of Marvel Studios Thunderbolts with the cast and crew, including Bucky Barnes himself, Sebastian Stan.
There were definitely moments that I had as Bucky in this that felt reminiscent of the Winter Soldier days. And that was really fun for me to kind of wink at that. And I think we did a great job with that.
That's all for today. If you haven't already, drop a comment, rating, or review wherever you're listening to us right now, please.
This episode was hosted by Langston Belton and me, Sade Spence, featuring Ray Lowe.
Our producers are Jasmine Estrada and Anita Flores.
Thanks to our Senior Manager of Audio Production and Development, Brad Barton, and Production Manager, Emily Godfrey.
Mixed by Justin Harris.
Theme music by Ida Akbal.
Executive producers are Larissa Rosen and Jesse Berger.
Thank you so much for listening. See you next week.